All right, well, it's 4 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. My name is Casey Lewis, and this is how digital content increased my offline sales revenue by 400%. So when we were kids, we would go play like, you could just be a kid and you could find like a bucket and a shoe and a piece of string and you could come up with some sort of game, right? Like that's just what kids did. So when I was in college, we did something very similar, and I'm living in the dorms, and we're in this, like my dorm was in a basement, and we had this long, skinny, narrow hallway. And one day, somebody had gone to a garage sale and found one of those small exercise trampolines. And we had a trash can, and we had some extra mattresses, so we came up with a game, because that's what you do when you're 18 in a college in a basement. So here's the game. It's really simple. The rules are really easy. You line up, long, skinny hallway, you run, you jump, you hit the trampoline, you fly over the trash can like Superman, and you land on a mattress. Pretty simple, right? These are the rules of the game. So the whole dorm lines up. Round 2, we raise the trash can up a little bit. You run, you jump, you hit the trampoline, you fly over the trampoline like Superman, you land on the mattress. Round 3, we raise the trash can up a little bit. Same thing, you run, you jump, you hit the trampoline, you fly over the trash can like Superman, except not everybody is Superman in round 3. And things get a little bit more real. Round 4, same thing, we raise it. Round 5, we raise it. By the time we get to round 6, there's about this much room between the ceiling and the trash can. There's only 2 or 3 people left. My friend Matt lines up, he runs, he jumps, he hits the trampoline, he flies over the trash can like Superman, but as he does, his foot grazes the ceiling, and it cut his heel off. Like OFF, cut it off, and all of a sudden the rules of the game changed, and we don't play that game anymore. So we're going to talk about money and careers and how to make sales, and that story had nothing to do with it. In about 2009, 2010 timeframe, I was in a career in marketing and advertising, and the rules of the game changed because the stock market crashed and the real estate market tanked. And my company that I worked for decided they needed to lay off half of their workforce, and I was one of them. So I'm in 2010, massive amount of debt, small baby at home, no job, no way to get a job. So I did what every smart person does in 2010, decided I'm going to go sell real estate, because that's a great time to get into the real estate market. And I dove in and I went into classes, and I would sit in and they would talk about cold calling, and they would talk about how to go door knock, and all of these methods to get new clients. And it would be send out 100 letters a day and make these calls to people that don't know you. And I did all of those things, and I got business and was selling houses pretty well. But as I was sitting in those classes, I realized, like, all these people are playing by an old rule book. Like, things have changed, and how we can get clients has changed. And so they're door knocking and cold calling, and I'm doing some of that too, but I'm also writing on a blog. And I've hired a professional photographer to take pictures of my listing rather than just having a digital camera take the pictures. And I've got a videographer, and we're shooting videos of houses, and I'm going out and shooting videos and commenting on Facebook and creating Facebook groups, and my business starts doubling what everybody else is doing. And I'm in my first 6 months as a real estate agent, and I'm the top emerging agent in our market. I'm selling double the number of homes that the average person is selling. And it all came down to digital content is what was driving my new business. So I don't have a physical product to sell. I don't have a digital like online course or anything like that. I sell services. I am a real estate agent in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We help people buy and sell houses. I help people nationwide buy and sell houses by connecting them with a realtor in their area. And then my clients also will contact me for help on getting out of debt, building a savings account, going through financial coaching. That's what my business is. I sell services. And so how can a service-based business create content that actually drives sales? So if you're going to create content, your existing clients are going to benefit from the most. And what I found in real estate was I was getting the same questions over and over and over again from each client. When I would coach with a family on their finances, it was a very similar situation each time. How do I budget? How do I get out of debt? And the process is kind of the same. It would be questions of how do I get a mortgage, or what's the next step in the home buying process. And so I created content that those people would benefit from the most. And then benefit to me is, rather than have to answer that same question 50 times a year, I just send them an email with a link to, hey, here's a whole article, or here's a podcast episode, or here's something that you can learn that'll answer your question way more in depth than me just answering it. So after you create that content, once you create like a blog post, that blog post could then be repurposed into multiple other platforms. If you create a blog post on like the steps for buying a house, or here's how you get out of debt, that could also become a podcast episode. It could become a YouTube video. It could become Facebook Live. You can repurpose that content. And then on each piece of content, you can cross-market that. And this is where you actually get to make the money. So what I learned is that inside of a 30-minute podcast, I could have a 30-second clip that talked about our nationwide real estate referrals and just produce it like a commercial. Just say, hey, if you live in Georgia and you need a real estate agent, we'll connect you. And that was it. It's a soft sell. I'm providing value to them. Soft sell of here's a service, a way you can pay me for the advice that I'm actually giving you. So as I was getting ready to come talk at FinCon, I was trying to figure out how do we set out like what content could look like for a broad audience of people that do debt consolidation or credit repair or anything around money. And so I thought, let's not talk about money for a second. Let's talk about cheese. So let's say that you own a cheese store. You're a cheese maker, a cheese connoisseur, if you will. And you have cheesy products that are delicious and Gouda in your store, and one of your classes, products, something that you want to sell is a cheese making and wine tasting night. That's what you want to come up with, or the product that you really are trying to sell. Rather than create ads around that, you could write a blog post called The Top 20 Places to Eat Queso Before You Die. It's kind of along the lines of cheese. It's something a cheesy audience would like. But as you go visit those 20 places to eat queso, maybe you video that each time. And you take your phone and you talk about it, or you have friends go with you and you guys just kind of talk and have queso at dinner, and you're on the quest for some perfect queso, and it gives you a nice YouTube vlog. But then you turn that into your podcast episode, and you have more content that you create. And while you were at that restaurant, you decide to go live on Facebook and say, I found it, this is the perfect queso, everybody needs to go here. And then, of course, you're going to have your weekly email newsletter that talks about your blog and your podcast and everywhere else that they can find all of the cheese stuff. But look at that bottom right there. It says, P.S. we're having half price cheese making and wine night on Tuesday at the studio this week. We'd love to have you join us. Just a soft sell way to say, hey, this is a service that we provide to you. And of course, you're going to have your email newsletter subscribed, where it's a Gouda email each week. Be sure not to miss a cheesy thing. So that's an example of how you can take one piece of content and fold it out into every different platform that's out there. You can create a podcast, you can create a blog, you can create Facebook Live, you could Instagram story, you've got all these options with it. And what I found when I started creating digital content is there were 4 really big benefits to me and my business. The first is that creating digital content consistently over time builds credibility among your existing and potential client base. So a lot of times we think of credibility as, I need to be on MSN Money, or I need to be on Forbes. That's the only way I'm going to have credibility. But what I found is the majority of people, that if you just have a website, they're like, dang, you're killing it. Like, that's really, if you create a website or you have a podcast, oh my God, you have a podcast, people will think you're incredible and like you're on the radio, and it's awesome. Just having something where you're consistently creating digital content is going to build credibility among not just your existing clients, but people that will want to use your business in the future. One of the other benefits is that it increases the loyalty of your current clients. So I'm in real estate. I only get to see our clients once every 5 to 8 years on average, unless something major changes, but most people move about every 8 years. There's a lot of time between year 0 and year 8 where I can lose them as a client. And the traditional real estate model is you call them on their birthday, you call them on their anniversary, you send them postcards in the mail, your real estate agent maybe sent you even like a little recipe card for some reason. That's kind of the traditional model. But if you are creating content on a weekly basis or even a daily basis or a monthly basis that is going to them, you have increased exponentially the number of touch points that you have with that client. And so over a 5-year period, maybe if you're a real estate agent, you say, hey, I just met this lawn guy who's awesome in our area. Here's his phone number. And I just kind of help him out a little bit. You earn the opportunity to just get that repeat business from them. It creates loyalty among your existing people, but also the more content you create attracts new people to your database. And I think that's, most of y'all are here. You want to learn how to market and how to get your name and get your stuff out there. Creating content by itself, just creating content will introduce you to new people, even bad content. New people are going to find out about you, and it attracts new clients to your database. But then, of course, the most important part is digital content provides additional opportunities for you to sell. It's that simple. If you create one piece of content that then becomes a podcast and a blog, and you've got 4 other things that come off of that. Just do it once a week. You've got 200 opportunities in a year to sell. Now, don't create content that is designed to sell. Create content that is designed to help. Because if you create content that's designed to sell to somebody, they will check out, they won't come back to your site, they won't come back to your blog, they won't listen to anything you have to say. But if you create content that helps people, you've earned the right to then say, oh, by the way, I know you're having a problem with this. Here's a product or a service that I offer that's a solution to that problem. But you have to go in with the intention that you're going to help first. So it was about 5 years ago at an event very much like FinCon. A friend of a friend introduced me to a guy named Joshua Sheets. Does anybody know Radical Personal Finance? Joshua Sheets. So Joshua did a podcast where he, like every day for years, released a new episode. And so I met him and we went out in the lobby at this conference and for 45 minutes had a podcast interview. And in that interview, there was about 30 seconds where I talked about our nationwide real estate referrals. Just 30 seconds of a 45-minute interview. And Joshua published that podcast about 4 weeks later. And about a month after he published that, a guy by the name of Fritz Gilbert, anybody recognize Fritz? So Retirement Manifesto. Fritz Gilbert is about to sell his house in Georgia. And he had heard Joshua's podcast episode. And I get an email from my website that says, hey, you've got a lead. I called Fritz. We talked. I connected him with an agent. We sold his house really, really quickly. He sold it for over list. He was ecstatic. He got to downsize into his retirement home. And being the good blogger he is, decided to write a blog about it. And in that blog, he mentioned my name and linked to my subscribe form on my website, and then Radical Personal Finance, or not Radical Personal Finance, excuse me, Rockstar Finance retweeted it. And I got so many leads in that time period that I can track down today to 14 families that we got to help. 14 that didn't have a real estate agent, didn't know what they were going to do, that I was able to come alongside them, connect them, make their life easy, help them sell their house so that they can go chase their next adventure. And also, the average sale on that's about $3,000 to me. So the money's great, but we got to help 14 people, y'all, that weren't going to be able to get help. And so what my hope is, and why I come to FinCon, and why I hope you're here, is yes, we want to get the technical aspects of like, how do I set up a blog? How do I edit? How do I record video? How do I do all of these technical things? But more than that, I hope you're inspired to go, when you leave here, to go like create and go do stuff. Because the more content that you create, the more opportunities you have to, yes, sell, but you also have more opportunities to help more people. And the more we all collectively are creating content, the more people that we're going to be able to help. So that's all I have. I think we've got a little bit of time. and I can open up for questions. So I do not have a blog calendar or anything like that. So when I create a piece of content, I obviously am not going to turn around the next podcast episode is not going to be reading the blog from that. So I'm going to mix that up and scatter it out. But I've also gone back years ago to content and recreated that piece of content in a different way because my life is different than it was 6 years ago when I created that. So I have new insights to that same topic from years ago. Well, I'm Casey Lewis. You can find me at caseylewis.com. Thank you for having me.